Hey YouTube, I'm back. So it's Thanksgiving morning, it's about 4 a.m. and I'm not really going to have any time to work on the bike over the next few days. So I wanted to just give you a quick look at where I'm at. And basically the rear end is, or the rear speakers are pretty much done at this point. I've got to put some brackets on this piece of plastic I molded kind of with a heat gun to cover it, to protect it. I can still put a helmet in the back trunk if I want, but that's what I came up with. Everything is wired in place, everything is terminated, and it's been tested. It works pretty good. Out of a scale of 10, I'm going to give it maybe a 7. I think those Boss 4-inch speakers I put in the pockets are not very good. They were dirt cheap, but I'm going to have to find better ones for that. But all of my speaker wires are under snap splices. My terminations for the trigger, ground, hot, color coded, under splices, under terminals, RCAs, everything is all nice and tucked away. I haven't finished tucking away the wires on the other side where they come out to the pockets. They pick up the head unit line. This side is done, and you see I made my terminations and stuck them down in there, and there's my marking telling me what's what. But I got that going through the original route. I'm going to throw a light on real quick. This might become invisible to you, but there you go. Pretty bright. And I've got the sub labeled what channels I used for what, just in case, somebody else ever has to work on this for any reason. It's kind of road mapped out for you. Power comes off the relay, hits the fuse, comes around, comes back up. Ground is on the bottom pole or the ground pole of the fuse box, comes down and around. There's extra wire for everything just kind of tucked behind the harness to the fuse box from the front of the bike. And I do have like 3 or 4 wire nuts in the system I want to get rid of still. But when I originally made the splice to the head unit wires, they looked more like that. They're jammed down in that little free space I had just to keep them from getting into trouble at that pinch point by the hinge for the trunk. It is made to let the original wiring for the lighted spoiler and the speakers to go through that area, but since my wires are way bigger, see I made them into a harness. They're going up there nice and clean. I just gotta clean those connections up with permanent splices. Throw some little 90-degree brackets down for my cover, put the liner back in it, and this side or the back end of the bike is done. It's pretty good. It works really well. I did perforate the trunk. In other words, I drilled a bunch of holes in it, and I don't know if you can actually see this. I think there's a light on this camera somewhere. Not there. Well, there is, but I don't know where it is. But you can see light hitting the back of the chair through some of the openings. But I wound up drilling the hell out of it. I tried it. There's more little light holes coming through. I tried it with the back of the trunk wall solid still. I tested the system, and it was just muffled. It vibrated the hell out of the bike, but you really didn't get the sound I'd wanted from it. So I drilled that. It helped a lot with at least the clarity of the sound. Overall volume of the sound, amazing. It's super loud. You still can't turn the head unit up more than halfway. So my debate when I started was, does that distortion come from the speakers or from the head unit, from a combination of them both? At this point, I'm going to say a combination of them both, but more from the head unit than the actual speakers. So if yours isn't great, you could probably live with it, because unless you go big on wattage, you're not going to get past the point where you can listen to music loudly and still have it be clean. I am suffering a minor setback with the front stuff. These on Amazon were advertised as 1-inch speakers. You get them, and they're actually 3.75-inch speakers, which means I can't install them under the little tweeter hole. Let's see, oh, they're as big as the regular ones. So yeah, these are going to have to go back, or just I'll find another use for them. But I still need to get a small set of tweeters. I do want to add a tweeter here. I've got to drill out the knockout behind it. So I'm going to be taking this apart, the whole dashboard apart again. I'm thinking about dropping the little mini amp I bought for this, or ordered for this, it hasn't come yet, into the pocket. Now, that pocket underneath it has a huge amount of space. But if I throw the amp all the way up and in there where it's not accessible, I can never do adjustments to it without removing the pocket, which also means removing the vent knob, or the headlight knob rather. And it just seems like a bad idea to me. So what I'm considering is tremoing out part of the bottom of the pocket, a couple of brackets bent on an appropriate angle to angle the sub underneath. I don't know if you can see this on camera or not, but I've got my 12 volt outlet under here that I put in. Sorry. There's a 12 volt outlet there, and then there's the double USB port, which is supporting my USB charger on the left side of my handlebar and my Bluetooth receiver. So I want to maintain both of those. I don't want to give those up, but I also don't want to block them by leaving the amplifier out to where I can always get to the adjustments later. So it looks like I'm going to lose the second dash pocket. I've already lost the first one when I went with all that stuff, and I'm going to wind up giving up the second one as well. But that's about where I am right now. I'm going to keep going on it when I get the time and when I get the parts from Amazon. But once again, this only takes up maybe 3 inches of the trunk at the top, and I could push the plastic in on an angle before I bracket the bottom down. And I'm just going to make like 2 small brackets to channel it down, a couple of brackets at the top with wing nuts so I can get under it without tools. I don't want to have to be fighting for tools on the road if I blow a fuse. But with the cover I made, which is just kind of an experimental piece, it was really cheap to buy a light lens and just bend it with a heat gun. It does go right in place, but I mean, you still have a lot of trunk though. It's not like to get a decent sound system with big speakers and woofers and amplifiers. It's not like you have to give up your whole trunk. I mean, that was a problem I had with my car when I first put a kicker box in the trunk of a Dodge Challenger. Found out I didn't have a trunk anymore. This is not that case. I went with those subs that were shallow speakers in their advertisement, so it's not bad. And this is way too cheap and thin to actually protect it from anything other than just like something rubbing up against it, minor contacts. That's going to crack the first time I put anything with weight in there or stuff the trunk. But I just wanted to see if it would work and what it would be like, and it's not bad. If I go with a thicker acrylic or something, I'll also be able to install a fan if I think I need it, especially if I keep the plastic at such a tight bend to the amp. I'm going to want ventilation that actually circulates air, so I'll probably put a fan in, like down in this area, and just push air out the sides to allow for, no overheating on that amp to cool that amp. But again, it's pretty all accessible, and you can see the wires. Everything's color coded. I use different wires for different jobs, so it's pretty easy to figure this all out. Total project time on this, about 8 hours, because I was thinking my way through each step. I've never really seen anybody do anything like this, and so you got to kind of just figure things out as you go, but you also then come up with better ideas as you're going, and you wind up doing things 2 and 3 and 4 times over. So that's where we are. That's where we are at right now. Other than that, have a happy Thanksgiving, guys. Safe riding. Hope everybody's doing well out there, and we'll see you soon.